They don't want you to know this. For thousands of years, the truth has been buried. Rewritten, erased. You've been told that God is the supreme creator, the ultimate being, the beginning and the end. But that's a falsehood. The version of God that billions worship today. He's not the source, he's not the first, he's not even what he claims to be. The Gnostic texts, banned, burned, and hidden, tell a radically different story on the beginning of the world. A text found in the Nag Hammadi library reveals the origins of the being known as Yerar, not the kindly all-know a god of mainstream faith, but a false deity, an imposter, a rogue entity that came into life through an accident of an abomination, formed from a mistake in the heavenly order. And yet this being had the audacity to say, "I am God, and there is no one but me." That's where the lying begins. Yerar wasn't the first. He wasn't the source of all things. He was born from a higher world, a realm beyond material reality, a place called the Ploma in Gnostic mythology. The Ploma is the realm of true divinity, a huge and mysterious presence beyond human understanding. From this infinite consciousness came emanations, pure cunning forces of creation. Among them were Sophia and Eon, a divine feminine force. But something happened. Sophia, in her great wisdom and wonder, acted independently. She sought to create without her divine partner, and from this act, a being was formed, Yabar, a twisted, malformed creature cut off from the Ploma, ignorant of his own origins. He was strong, but imperfect, blind, yet arrogant. He didn't know where he came from. He only knew that he existed. So he did what every ruler in history has done. He declared himself supreme and demanded obedience. He made lesser beings, the archons, to rule beside him, enforcing his will. He built a false heaven, a fabricated world of control, and then he built the material world, everything. You see, everything you touch was formed in his domain. This world wasn't made by a benevolent God. It was a prison, a simulation, a control system meant to keep souls trapped in the circle of life and death, never realizing their true origins. The great lie was set in motion. Yerar fashioned humanity, but not out of love. He wanted slaves. He wanted worship. But something unexpected happened. When he breathed life into his work, something else entered, something beyond his control, a spark from the true divine world. The Ploma itself, the human soul. This is where the war began. The archons. His enforcers worked to stifle this spark, to keep humanity dumb, obedient, blind. They gave laws, religions, beliefs, and systems of control, all to strengthen the lie that Yabar was the one true God. Over centuries, denters were quiet, scriptures were changed, knowledge was erased, but pieces of the truth survived. The Gnostic texts, the suppressed knowledge of ancient heretics, hold the key to breaking the fantasy. You wake up every morning thinking you have free will. You go to work, pay your bills, follow the rules, live and die in a world you assume is your own. But what if everything around you, your choices, your goals, even your thoughts, are part of a construct plan to keep you blind? This isn't figurative. This isn't some abstract philosophy. This is what the Gnostic texts have been trying to tell us for thousands of years. You are living in a jail and you don't even know it. The material world, everything you see, everything you deal with, is a security system. It was created not as an act of divine love, but as an act of control, and who rules it? The archons, cosmos wardens, working under the power of their ruler, Yabar. These people are not angels. They are not gods of wisdom or justice. They are parasites, beings that exist solely to keep dominion over human souls. Their power is trickery, and their best trick was making you believe that this world is all there is. Old Gnostic texts describe the archons as shapeless beings existing within the levels of reality, like programmers behind a simulation. Their goal to keep you tracked, to ensure you never understand your true nature. How do they do this? By making you dependent on the real world. They introduce pain, pleasure, fear, and desire, not to improve your experience, but to keep you involved in the system. They create distractions, war, entertainment, politics, social structures, the endless pursuit of wealth and status. All of it keeps you running on a treadmill, never asking why the world works the way it does, never understanding you're in a cage. And here's the worst part. They didn't just build the jail. They built your mind to love it. Your perception of truth has been carefully engineered. The archons control thought-bending human mind to accept limitations as truth. They spread fear of the unknown, making the idea of breaking free seem scary the moment a person begins to question to see beyond the veil. The system reacts bonds, social conditioning, religious dogma, even your own instincts, all meant to pull you back into submission. The archons don't need chains to bind you. They just need you to believe you were never imprisoned to begin with. Gnostic books suggest that certain people, those who hold the divine spark, are capable of perceiving the deceit. These are the ones who see beyond the illusions, who understand that the actual world is not the final destination, but knowledge alone isn't enough. The system is built to break those who fight throughout history. Those who have tried to expose the truth have been silenced. Gnostic groups were eradicated. Their books destroyed, their teachings erased. Even now, mainstream beliefs mock and reject anything that questions the status quo. If someone dares to question the basic nature of truth, they are labeled insane, conspiratorial, dangerous. The control is deeper than you think. You were never meant to know the truth from the moment you were born. Everything around you, your education, your society, your entire belief system was carefully built to keep you in ignorance, not stupidity. Ignorance. There's a difference. You've been given just enough information to function, to follow, to accept the world as it is, but the real knowledge, the information that could break the system that was stolen from you, hidden, destroyed the old. Gnostics understood something that mainstream religion and modern science conveniently overlook, and knowledge is power, and power threatens control. Not just any knowledge, gnosis, direct, actual understanding of reality, not opinion, not faith. Actual first-hand sense of what's beyond this artificial world. That is the one thing the masters of this system cannot allow, because once you see through the fantasy, you can't be controlled anymore. The texts that survived ages of suppression describe how gnosis was once accessible to humans. Certain individuals, mystics, sages, philosophers, discovered methods to pierce the veil to access higher dimensions of consciousness. They weren't delusional. They weren't imagining things. They were seeing the shape of truth for what it was, and they were silent for it. The early Christian church branded them as heretics. Their words destroyed their followers, hunted down even today. Modern organizations reduce these lessons to mere chemical response in the brain, random firings of synapses, the same way a prison guard would tell an inmate that the outside world doesn't exist. So what is gnosis exactly? It's not knowledge you can get from books, from ideas, from secondhand reports. It's not a belief in some deity or an abstract theory. It's a meeting, a direct, undeniable confrontation with the world, beyond this fake world. Those who have had it describe it as a waking up, an instantaneous awareness that the material world is not the basis of existence, that beyond it lies something vast, something incomprehensible, something real, and once you know it's there, nothing is ever the same again. Ancient traditions had ways for achieving this deep stillness, sacred rites, altered states of consciousness, extreme physical or mental discipline, the secret schools of Egypt, the initiates of Eloise, the shamans of original cultures, all of them had pieces of the picture. The Gnostics, however, put it all together. They knew that the key to freedom wasn't in praising a god, following religious laws, or collecting intellectual understanding. It was in direct experience. That's why they were dangerous. That's why they were erased. Because the moment someone gains gnosis, they stop playing the game. They see the structure for what it is, or construct. They recognize that their consciousness is not bound to this world, that their true self has always lived beyond it. And the system can't work if too many people figure that out. It relies on compliance, on belief, on surrender. If you stop believing in its authority, it loses its power. If enough people wake up, the entire construct crashes. This is why throughout history, true knowledge has always been suppressed. The Library of Alexandria burned the words of the Cathars, eradicated the esoteric texts of ancient civilizations, either destroyed or locked away, kept from public access. Because if you don't know that you're in a prison, you'll never try to escape. Everything you know about life has been fed to you in pieces, carefully curated, deliberately unfinished. You see the world as a series of chance events, disconnected histories, isolated accidents, but it's not. There is a structure, a secret architecture that decides the way this reality tasks, and it has been in place long before human civilization existed. The ancient Gnostic texts show that the universe is not some wild accident, nor is it the planned masterpiece of a single almighty God. It is a laid system, a discharge of forces, a cascading ladder of power at the top, is something so big, so incomprehensible that it can barely be understood. The ploma, the true source of life. It is pure, limitless consciousness. It has no physical form, no personality, no singular. Well, it simply is. From it, everything moves, like light breaking through a lens, but as that light extends outward, it weakens. The first emanations from the ploma are pure intelligences, what the Gnostics called Dian. These aren't gods in the way most people think of them. They aren't things with egos, wants, or agendas. They are ideals, forces of reality itself, concepts so basic that human language barely scratches the surface of what they represent. And then further down the chain, things start to distort. The further creation moves away from the source, the more imperfect and limited it becomes. This is where the problem begins. Somewhere along this downward cascade, something went wrong. A fracture occurred, a departure from the divine design. Yerar, the false creator, was a product of this deviation. He was never meant to exist, yet he did. And like all flawed beings, he wanted power. Unlike the Eon, he was not connected to the full knowledge of the ploma. He was in complete ignorance of his own origins, and so to adjust, he created something of his own, a world, a counterfeit truth. But Yabar did not make this world alone. He needed and forces creators of control, beings that could support his system, keep the illusion unchanged and suppress any knowledge know of what lay beyond it. These were the archons, each one ruling over a different aspect of life, each one dedicated to keeping the LIE alive. This is why the world runs the way it does, the pain, the cycles of destruction, the illusions of freedom and control. It's all by design. Different archons oversee different domains. Some control the physical laws of nature, ensuring that this truth stays stable. Others influence human psychology, shaping thought patterns, guiding societies toward control. Structures like religion, government, and economic enslavement. Still others survive in conflict, feeding off the confusion and fear produced by endless wars, oppression, and manufactured problems in many ancient traditions. These people are described under different names. The masters of the material world, the fake gods of old religions, the unseen hands behind power. They are not myths, they are not symbols, they are real. And they have been ruling over human thought since the beginning of history. You were never meant to wake up. You were meant to serve to a be, to live without questioning why the system wasn't built for you. It was built to contain you. And yet, despite every device in place to suppress it, something inside of you fights something, buried deep within something even. The architects of this prison couldn't fully destroy. The Gnostics called it the divine spark, a fragment of something far bigger than this world, something that doesn't fit here. And if you have ever felt out of place, if you have ever sensed that there is something deeply wrong with reality, if you have ever questioned why pain seems to be woven into the fabric of life, then you already know exactly what I'm talking about. The divine spark is what separates people from everything else in this creation, unlike the archons who are bound to the system they uphold, and unlike the animals of this world, which work purely by instinct. Your consciousness comes from beyond this material world. You are an exile. You were not made by Yerar. Despite what religious books would have you believe, he and his archons took credit for something they did not and could not create. They made your physical body, yes, they made your biological form, but they did not create the soul that animates you. And that essence is the one thing they cannot fully control. Ancient Gnostic books describe how after making the first human bodies, Yabar and his archons tried to create them, but they failed. Their creation was lifeless, empty. The spark was missing. They were not true makers. They could shape matter, but they could not give it real consciousness. Then something happened that they did not expect, a force beyond their reach. Something from the ploma itself intervened. The divine realm imbued these vessels with something the archons had no power over: true consciousness. And in that moment, everything changed. The Archons, terrified, they realized what they had done. They had allowed real consciousness into their created world, and that meant their control was no longer absolute. So they created a new plan. They would not destroy humanity. Instead, they would enslave it. From that moment forward, their goal became ruse. They needed to make sure that humanity never understood its true nature. They manipulated perception, making layers of illusion. They gave humanity religions that honored them, instead of the true source. They made the idea of sin, guilt, and divine punishment. They created societal structures that conditioned loyalty. They made pain inescapable, ensuring that humanity would always be too distracted, too broken, too desperate to search for the truth. But despite all of this, the divine spark persists no matter how much they try to suppress it. Some people still wake up. Some people still remember. The history of the world is filled with people who saw beyond the lie. Mystics, visionaries, rebels, people who try to break the cycle, who try to spread the truth. And what happened to them? They were erased, humiliated, or killed, because if too many people remember, if too many people understand that the prison is just a jail, the system collapses. The Archons need humanity to stay ignorant. They need you to believe that this world is all there is. They need you to connect with your physical body, with your temporary existence, with your pain. The Archons never wanted real consciousness in their system, but it happened that divine spark, the one thing they can't fully control, entered their domain, and ever since they have been fighting to keep it from waking up. This isn't a fight fought with guns or armies. It's something far older, far more insidious. It's a war of perception, a war for your mind. The Archons don't need to physically control you. They don't need chains, bars, or walls. Their best weapon is lies. If they can make you believe in the system, if they can convince you that this world is all there is, then you'll never even try to escape, and that's exactly what they've done. They've embedded their control into every part of human civilization. Governments, religions, economics, science, entertainment, even your own thought processes. They have spent thousands of years perfecting a method of control that doesn't look like control. Look around the endless rounds of war, oppression, division, and suffering. Do you really think that's just human nature? Do you really think it's a chance that every attempt at true freedom has been crushed before it could succeed? The Gnostic texts tell us otherwise. They describe the Archons as predators. Not physical beings, but entities that feed on human pain, on fear, on division. They grow in chaos. Every war, every crisis, every system of control serves one goal: to keep humanity distracted, weakened, and ignorant of the truth. And the moment someone starts to wake up, the system reacts. It isolates them, ridicules them, neutralizes them. History is full of those who saw through the illusion and tried to expose it. They were called heretics, lunatics, plot theorists. They were stopped, erased, or turned into warning tales. And yet the truth still finds a way to surface, because no matter how much they hide it, the war is not over. Every time a person begins to question, every time someone remembers that they are more than just a body, that they are more than just a cog in a system meant to exploit them, the Archons lose ground. This is why they double down. This is why they constantly make conflict, racial, political, religious, ideological. They know that a split species is easy to control. They need you fighting each other instead of fighting them, but the war isn't just exterior. It's happening inside of you right now. Every doubt, every fear, every moment of despair, that's part of their weaponry. They have programmed you to self-police, to limit yourself, to harm your own awakening. That little voice in your head that tells you not to question, not to push too far, not to ask why. That's them. That's the control system doing its job. The Gnostics understood this. They knew that liberation wasn't about physical escape. It was about knowledge. The moment you see the system, the moment you know the war, the battle shifts, the control loses its grip. That's why the Archons work so hard to keep you distracted. That's why this method is meant to keep you exhausted, numbed, and overwhelmed. Past has been rewritten, not just changed, not just biased completely. Rewritten. The real story of humanity, the real nature of life, has been carefully erased, buried under layers of made narratives, and the proof it's been destroyed, hidden, or labeled as myth. The truth was never lost. It was hidden. The Gnostics weren't the only ones who knew about the lie. They weren't some isolated group of mystics with abstract ideas. The same knowledge existed in ancient Egypt, in the lessons of the aces in the secret schools of Greece, in the Vedic texts of India. But every time this knowledge emerged, it was either co-opted or eliminated. Take the Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest sources of ancient knowledge ever assembled. It contained pieces from all over the known world wisdom that predated mainstream religion works, that challenged the official explanations. And what happened? Burned, erased. We're told it was an accident, a casualty of war. But do you really believe that? Do you think the most useful knowledge of the ancient world was lost purely by chance? Look at the Gnostic texts themselves. These weren't just alternative religion ideas. They were direct danger to the control system. They revealed the false creator they named the AR. They explained the prison and what happened. The early Christian church branded them as heresy, ordered them destroyed. Anyone caught having them was executed. The original version of Christianity, the one that billions follow today, was carefully crafted, filtered, sanitized to keep the lie unbroken. And then there's the Dead Sea Scrolls texts found in the 1940s that contain words contradicting major elements of mainstream religious doctrine. Why weren't they widely known? Why did it take decades for some of the scrolls to be given to the people? And why are there still parts of them that stay untranslated, locked away? Because they don't fit the story. Because they point to something greater than the version of history we've been given. And this isn't just ancient past. The suppression never stopped. Look at Nikola Tesla, the man who tapped into free energy, who claimed he was getting information from beyond his work, stolen his research, classified he died penis, while others profited from a fraction of what he discovered. Look at how modern institutions operate. School corporations, religious groups, who decides what information is allowed, who funds the research, who owns the printing companies, the same elite groups, the same bloodlines, the same power arrangements that have been controlling information for centuries. Information isn't free, it's filtered, and every time someone gets too close to exposing something real, the same pattern emerges. They are silenced, mocked, or worse. Look at spies. Look at independent researchers who suddenly disappear. Look at the shocking deaths of scientists and thinkers who dared to challenge the establishment. This is not chance, this is not paranoia. This is how power works. The system does not allow free access to information that threatens its existence. You've made it this far. That alone should tell you something most people won't. Most people will dismiss this, mock it, or simply refuse to even entertain the chance that everything they've been told is a lie. And that's exactly how the system was designed, to keep people asleep, to keep them obedient, to make sure they never even question their own world. But you're still here, and that means something. The biggest deception ever pulled was telling humanity that their prison is all there is, that this world, this broken, corrupt, pain-filled life, is the natural order, that this is just how things are, that questioning is useless, dangerous, even crazy. That's the trap. The Archons don't care what you think. As long as you don't understand the truth, they don't care if you worship them or not, as long as you still accept their authority. They don't care if you fight against their system, as long as you fight on their terms. Political fights, economic struggles, social clashes, all distractions, all meant to keep you focused on this world, so you never realize you were never supposed to be here in the first place. But here's the real secret, the one that scares them the most. You are more powerful than you've been led to believe. The Gnostic books make one thing absolutely clear. The Archons do not make. They can manipulate, they can confuse, they can imitate, but they cannot make only real consciousness. Only something connected to the true source has the power to manifest truth, and that's why they fear you. That's why they need you distracted. Because if you ever truly realized what you are, if you ever took control of your own consciousness, you wouldn't just wake up, you would break the system itself. This is why they've spent millennia stifling knowledge, rewriting history, keeping humanity weak, separated, and lost, because the moment enough people wake up, the illusion breaks, the power structure crumbles, the prison walls shatter, and that's why they are scared. That's why control is tightening. That's why banning propaganda and deception are more fierce than ever, because the cracks are showing. More people are waking up than at any other point in history. The deception is failing. So what happens next? That depends on you. Because this war, this battle for vision for reality itself isn't over. It's happening right now. And whether you realize it or not, you're part of it. Thank you for watching, thank you for thinking for yourself, and thank you for not looking away.